Welcome to the June 5th, 2019 regular board meeting. Before the reception, the board was in executive session to discuss an individual personnel matter, tenure, and the annual evaluation for the superintendent. Before we get to the pledge, I just wanted to apologize to everybody that I wasn't at the reception. I'm under the weather, so I didn't want to get you all sick. And during the presentations tonight, the Vice President, Holly, will be standing up in my stead to shake hands. Okay, if we could say the Pledge of Allegiance. Back there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And can we have introductions, please?
Dave Hurst, Chris Meyer.
Meredith Moriarty.
Jonathan Fishbein.
Jody Monroe.
Michael Cooper.
Holly Dellenbaugh.
Christine Beck.
And Judy Kehoe.
And do we have any PIG students here tonight? Okay. Your obligation is to stay until the end of the meeting or 9 o'clock, whichever comes first. If we go till 9, which I think is doubtful, but we'll see, we'll take a short break so you can come sign out. And before 9, just come up and sign out. And if you have any paperwork that you need signed, you can see any of the board members. Oh, yes. And Willow Bear is away on a trip, so she will not be in attendance this evening. Okay. So first up is the minutes of the May 22nd, 2019 regular board meeting. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the minutes of the May 22nd, 2019 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Do we have anyone here from Student Senate? No? Okay. Okay, next up is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to do is recognize some board members who received some certificates from the New York State School Boards Association. This is a recognition program designed to acknowledge those school board members who strive to continually expand their governance knowledge and skills. The recognition program is comprised of 4 achievement levels, which are reached by accumulating points by their training activities, such as Board Officers Academy, state mandated training, legal conferences, and board retreats. So we have several certificates for our dedicated board members this evening. The first is for Willow Bear, who was recognized for a Board Achievement Award, and she's not here, so. Christine Beck received one and also has an in-person training certificate as well. So. Holly Dellenbaugh has 2 achievement awards, one for excellence and one for achievement. And congratulations, Meredith has one as well. Thank you. We should get some of those frames from last meeting.
They were nice.
Yes, very nice.
I can put my mastery award.
Also, a couple of other things before we get to our tenure recognition. I was asked to be part of a state advisory council on computer-based testing for the 3 through 8 assessments. Last week, we had our first meeting. There's about 15 superintendents from across the state. We met with the commissioner and several representatives from the assessment committee to discuss the challenges, and I think everyone knows there were some challenges with computer-based testing, what the state education department is expecting in their next RFP, and also how to proceed, get schools to move ahead so that we can eventually get to adaptive testing, which is what most schools are looking for and is allowable now under Every Student Succeeds Act. So that would be the long-term goal. So the New York State Education Department is going to be gathering feedback from teachers and principals, and then our group will reconvene to follow up on those concerns. Last week, we had our retirement reception. It was a very special event. There are many family, friends, and colleagues who attended to recognize our staff who have dedicated themselves to serving the children and families of BC. So I'd like to thank them once again as we wind down our school year. And now, before we get into recognition of our tenure recipients, just to give everyone a bit of background on how our employees get to this point. It's not an easy process. For hiring, each candidate has at least one formal interview. Many have a screening prior. They're required to teach a lesson in front of evaluators and then have a final interview. Once they're hired, each individual is observed at minimum 4 times a year, most of the times more than that, by the principal and other supervisors for 4 years. They are also observed by me, and they're also observed by Mr. Hurst. So I don't know if, before we do the recognitions, the board wants to do the action, correct?
Okay. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following professional personnel action items 1 through 20 for tenure appointments as employees of the Bethlehem Central School District.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes, and congratulations.
So. So as we call your name, please come up and get this beautiful certificate. We did improvements. We have nicer frames this year, so you guys are the first in the group to have these nice frames. And we also have an eagle pin for all of our tenure recipients. So Georgios A., that's how we refer to him as, he has a very long last name, is receiving tenure in science. So Georgios, come on up. He had to leave. Okay, sorry about that. I saw him out there. Gregory Balcavage in elementary education. Yes. Danielle Blanchard in physical education. Yes. And Danny is going with the lacrosse team tomorrow to the state championship, so wish them congrats. Teresa Costello is getting tenure in elementary education for the second time in Bethlehem. She left for a while to raise her children and came back to us, so congratulations, Teresa. Congratulations to Joel Ditata, who is receiving tenure as a library media specialist. Congratulations to Darnell Douglas, who's receiving tenure as a guidance counselor. Congratulations to Eric Fana, who's receiving tenure in the Industrial Arts Program or Technology. Next year, Eric's going to make all the frames for this reception. Laura Feinberg is receiving tenure again for the second time at Bethlehem, this time in remedial reading. Congratulations, Laura. Morgan Flynn is receiving tenure in English. And Gretchen Gigante is also receiving tenure in English. The English department coordinated their colors this evening. Elizabeth Hall is receiving tenure in elementary education. Congratulations, Liz. Congratulations to Laura Hannigan, who's receiving tenure as an elementary education teacher. I'm going to say this one. Congratulations to Lindsay Knott, who's receiving tenure as a special education teacher. Congratulations to Jamie Meyer, who's receiving tenure as a library media specialist. Congratulations to Stacy Mihawk, who's receiving tenure in elementary education. And Maria Rogers, congratulations in receiving tenure as an elementary education teacher. Congratulations to Jill Venezia, who's receiving tenure in the area of mathematics. That's what happened when your name begins with Z. Congratulations, Stephanie Zanata, who's receiving tenure in the area of social studies. And we have one more tenure award recipient who I skipped. Mr. David Hurst, who's receiving tenure as the Assistant Superintendent for Educational Programs. This is his first ever Eagle pin. So, again, congratulations to everyone. I think Joellen probably wants to maneuver you around somewhere to get in a photo.
I'm gonna maneuver you. I'm actually gonna pull you guys over that way. So
And then if any family members want to get some photos as well.
we can go this way,
Here?
actually.
We'll go over this way. How's that? So we'll take a quick break. So let's see how quickly they can assemble themselves now that they've received tenure.
You're being timed, especially you elementary school teachers.
Yes. Direct them, Danny.
Thank you, congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Teachers are good people. Absolutely. I'm happy for
Oh, it didn't come with. Oh, it could be.
Because I don't think I'm separate, but I got a letter like 2 days ago.
Oh, really? Oh, so this came a couple days ago, so maybe it's time lapse?
Yeah.
Maybe a little different. It's not exactly the same.
Wait a minute till the hubbub.
Because of the weight of them?
Do you have anything else for the superintendent's report?
That was it.
Now we know who's really interested.
Or the kids who need the lost.
Right, right.
Okay, we're going to continue with the board meeting. Next up is the Board of Education report. I was able to attend the retirees reception last week, and it was very nice. And it's amazing when you look at the wealth of experience that was in that room. And they will all be very much missed, but we wish them well in their retirements. And I was also able to attend the high school award ceremony last week. And it's astounding, both the number of awards that are given out and also the number of students who are awarded them. So we want to congratulate all of them. That's all I have. Does anybody else have anything?
I was able also to attend the retirement reception, both as a board member and as a husband. My wife's retiring after 34 years, and she has promised Jody that she would be on the sub list for next year. I also had the pleasure of seeing Twelfth Night, put on by BJ Cat, and the students did an excellent job. And finally, I had the pleasure and privilege of attending Mr. Rowich's last show of his first graders. He puts these shows on every year, and at one point, my wife was part of them. She played the part of a pizza, I remember. But this year it was the Love Show, and as always, Mr. Rowich was wonderfully creative and brought out the talent of every one of these first graders and just showed again what a wonderful teacher he is. And he is one of the teachers that is retiring and will be sorely missed. That's all I have.
I would just second, I also saw Twelfth Night, and I thought they did a great job. I know they had a very short amount of time to practice and learn all of the lines, and they all did a great job.
I attended the senior assembly at Ellesmere, the senior assembly at Ellesmere, where they invite graduating seniors back to their elementary school class. And it was such a wonderful ceremony. The kids got to reminisce about their favorite memories from elementary school. And it just went to show what a great community there was, that the kids still felt welcome and celebrated back at their elementary school. So I wanted to thank the school for putting that on and creating that environment that the kids felt so welcome back and happy to be together as a class again.
I also attended the award ceremony at the high school last week, and just one quick thing, I just want to thank the community for all their support, because a lot of those awards were handed out by different community groups, and so it means a lot that those groups are willing to invest in our children, and so I thank them for that. And then the other thing, the Hammer Grail had their annual art show last week. My 8-year-old promised me art, ice cream, music, and fun, and it delivered on all 4 accounts. So it really is a great event. All the kids' art is there, and Mr. K is there scooping ice cream. So it was a great night.
And I just wanted to say I attended the retirement dinner as well, and I feel bad for Laura Heffernan, who's going to be filling Glenmont Elementary with a lot of new teachers next year. Hopefully, we'll be very supportive to her. We're losing a lot of great teachers, and I was lucky enough to have one child who finished out all of his years at Glenmont, so it was a great experience, and I hopefully will keep continuing that with our new hires. The tenure reception today was great, and it's always nice to see new teachers come into our school and be very excited and to know that they're doing a great job for our kids. I also wanted to talk about the award ceremony. What I thought was really nice about this year was the Bethlehem Central, or the Community Foundation, provided 2 awards where sometimes they only provide 1. So there was enough funding for some of these memorial awards to recognize like these students who are just doing a tremendous job, and maybe they didn't fit the criteria 100%, but they saw all that they contributed to the school over the 4 years that they were here. So thank you to our community and to everybody who supports these funds, because without that support, we wouldn't be able to continue them. And it is such a nice ceremony for these kids, and they're very proud of all of their accomplishments. So I just wanted to say thank you for that as well.
Okay. And are there any committee reports? Nope. Okay. All right, our presentation tonight is on the Solar Power Initiative. It will be presented by Judith Kehoe, Greg Nolte, and representatives of Forefront Power.
Good evening, everybody. This has been an initiative that has been worked on since about 2015. The last time you had a formal presentation on this, Greg had done the presentation, and it was at the point when we were getting ready to award the contract to the successful bidder following our RFP process. So about 4.5 years later, we're almost ready to cross the finish line with this project. Tonight, we have Greg Nolte with us as well, and we also have Brian Malazewski, who has been the project manager with Forefront Power, who has been, I think, a man of deep patience. He's worked through a lot of regulatory issues over the last few years through the town level and with National Grid and federal agencies, and it's been quite an exhaustive process. So he is here tonight to help if you have any questions that I can't answer. And again, just as a show of support for moving this forward. The project that is being installed is a 2.1 megawatt facility, and it is using something that's known as remote net metering. The district will be the beneficiary of this, but the power is actually produced on a piece of property within the Bethlehem Central School District, but not on district property. It's actually on almost an 11-acre site, and we have a 20-year agreement with them that is going to control the rate that we pay for our electricity. So it allows us to lock in at a flat rate now that will benefit us over the next 20 years. And based on the size of this project, close to 85% of our electric needs will be benefited by what is produced by this. So it's a pretty significant impact for us. As I noted, we started this back in 2015, and we went through, the company that we had originally awarded it to had been unable to finalized the project. Forefront stepped in midway and then navigated through the planning board approvals and the Board of Appeals. There were zoning variances that were required on this. The zoning board happened in the end of 2017, and then almost a year later, the planning board approvals came in. So we are now looking at, based on the extension that the board acted on at the last board meeting, the go-live date must occur by July 15th, 2019, and we're both very happy to report that that will happen very soon, sooner than that date. So you might ask, what the heck is a power purchase agreement? Thanks to our wonderful communications team who has put a moderately complex thing into a very visually understandable thing. Basically, NYSERDA is trying to encourage everybody to invest in renewable energy. So they have a series of credits that are available. Those credits flow to the developers who then incur all of the costs to install the solar arrays. And then there is an agreed upon price. They generate the electricity. It actually goes through an interconnection into National Grid, and then the district ends up getting credits or debits on their bill to make these adjustments to get us to that agreed upon price. So it's a very nice option for us. I know many districts have taken advantage of these opportunities, and it really is a win-win for the community and for the district and for the developer on this. So this photo is an actual photo of what has been installed by Forefront at the LaGrange parcel. They started their work as soon as they had their planning board approval in hand and the building permit, because it came late in the year. They were grappling with winter weather in the Northeast, but they were able to begin some of the work before that, and then have, once the snow's cleared, finished up the work with the installation of the actual solar units. Because this was associated with a local governmental unit, the company was required to pay prevailing wages to the contractors, which they did, and that means that we are in full compliance with our obligations as the sponsor of this. Today, they had what was known as a witness test, and this is a big deal for these projects. Forefront's engineers went through the quality assurance, quality control tests, and said, we are ready, we meet all of the things that we need to in order to be sending electricity into the National Grid network. And then the National Grid engineer came in and did their own tests to confirm that, or essentially witness that they were in fact ready to go live. And then, best of all, they got their PTO, and I said, come on, PTO, you give me more acronyms. That's parent-teacher organization. And they said, no, that's permission to operate. So that is in hand, so they are ready to go live once the board takes action to move this forward with the last two items on the agenda tonight. So congratulations to Brian and his team on attaining that. I know it was a big deal. The next slide just gives you a close-up view of what these panels look like if you were on the ground. You don't really get a sense of that when you're looking at the overhead view, but at least the overhead gives you an idea of the scale of the project in order to produce that level of energy. So, to recap the terms of our 20-year agreement, essentially it locks us into an electric rate over the 20-year term of this agreement. I've only known utility rates to go higher with every passing year. So essentially what this does is it gives us control over our budget over that 20-year time frame where our rates will not go up. Because our current rates are slightly higher than this flat rate, there is a cost to the district. In the first year, it's about $59,000 and it declines thereafter. But because we stay flat while the utility costs are rising, we have estimated savings to the district overall of anywhere between $770,000 or up to about $1.9 million, again, depending on the rate of escalation for those utilities. So the average savings, whether they're $38,000 or $96,000, are certainly significant to helping us control our energy costs going forward. The projects such as these are actually entitled to tax exemptions over a 15-year period. The Real Property Tax Law, Section 487, is the section of law that governs this, but they do allow payments in lieu of taxes to be negotiated between the parties. The Albany County and the town of Bethlehem did not opt to have a pilot agreement with Forefront, but this was something that we had talked to them about. Our situation is slightly different. Although we all are dealing in a tax cap environment, we really don't have diversity in our revenue sources. It's essentially property taxes or state aid, and that is certainly not escalating at any great rate. So we talked about, is there a way to structure a modest pilot agreement, so at least we were doing all that we could to preserve the revenues for the community. There are guidelines on this from NYSERDA, and they suggest a range per megawatt. Their low range would mean that a pilot would have been about $3,500 a year over the 15-year period, up to a high of almost $11,000 per year. What we had negotiated with Forefront puts us just above the midpoint of those recommended ranges from NYSERDA. We also did not do a straight line pilot amount where the amount is the same every year over that 15-year time period. Knowing that we would incur some additional costs in those initial years of investment in the power purchase agreement, we structured it so that there would be higher pilot amounts in the early years. So the first year of the agreement, which would take effect for the fall of 2020, is a $20,000 flat fee for the year. It would drop by $5,000 down to $15,000 in year 2, and then drop to $10,000 for 2 years after that, $7,500 for another 2 years before dropping down to $5,000 per year over the remaining term of the agreement. So, in our $100 million budget, it's certainly nothing that's going to make a phenomenal difference in our tax rates, but it is something that will certainly help us without causing undue burden on the project either, as they are in fact benefiting the district with that. Okay. So what we're seeking tonight is board approval on the pilot agreement itself. And then also, there is a sublease agreement that is required. It's actually required by National Grid so that they can comply with a certain section of the Public Services Law where we have to have a sublease agreement. So that document it was included in the original power purchase agreement, and we've updated it now that they had the tenant for it, and it's ready for finalization. We did have our district council review that, and they have affirmed that it is appropriate for us to sign. So that is it for the overview. If you have any questions, happy to take those.
Lucy, could we go back to slide number 7, please? Okay. You were saying that we have a fixed rate, but what I see there is a fixed rate of credit to the district. So it doesn't look like that's our fixed rate. It looks like that's a credit off what we would be charged. Is that?
We will end up settling up with National Grid, so we will pay $14.30. So whatever the actual rate is, it'll be a plus or a minus from that amount.
So we are paying $14.30 per kilowatt hour?
Yes.
Okay.
Once they go live. That is our rate, locked for 20 years.
Can I get that rate?
I know, wouldn't everybody love to lock in for 20 years? I think it's a favorable structure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. What were the costs for the current or the past year for energy costs? Do we know what in dollars, I'm talking dollars, not kilowatts, just to kind of put it into dollars?
I know the total budget line was close to $1 million, but that's not just electricity.
No, electric was about,
Microphone?
electric was about 470, and gas was about 350.
And I just wanted to see in dollars what we anticipate for the first year in regards to those numbers. So if that was 830, what do we expect to pay in the first year?
It would be $59,000 more than that based on the current rate differential.
So we don't anticipate going over the 900,000 mark?
No.
Okay. Combined? Okay.
Does the 59,000 extra include the the pilot?
No, it does not. That's just strictly the electric differential.
Okay, so in fact, then, we're really going to get, because we get the pilot back, it's really only costing us about 39.
Yeah, we will be netting that pilot. And again, that's why we structured it that way, so that the higher amounts were in the early years to offset those years when the fixed rate was slightly more than our current rate.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have one question, which I'm not sure they want to answer. I'm just curious, like, what is, and I'm new to solar, I don't have solar, what is the profit margin kind of for companies who give out solar power, or we do lease agreements?
I really don't know. I'm the construction manager.
Okay, I was just curious.
He has a whole finance team,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry.
so, yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, I look at it as fundraising, so when you go out and you look for a fundraiser and you want to get the best, amount for your fundraising ability, you're getting 40%, 50%, 30%. So I was just looking at it from that perspective to see kind of like what the profit margin was, or how, besides just saving, another avenue to look at,
And I think, as a private sector company, they wouldn't be obligated to share that with us, but hopefully there's some degree of profit in it for them, or they wouldn't be involved in this type of work, installing these. And I know you have numerous projects going on, but,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Want to thank everybody for their perseverance during this very prolonged process, but I think it will be well worth it.
A team effort, so, thank you.
Okay. Next up is recognition of visitors on an agenda item. If you would like to address the board, please come up to the microphone. No? Okay. Finance action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education discuss and approve the following finance action items 1 through 5.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Let's see. Professional personnel action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following professional personnel action items 1 through 6.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Support personnel action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action items 1 through 3.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? That passes. Other action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following action items 1 through 2.
It's actually 1 through 3.
Oh, okay. 1 through 3.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to look at the public, it is 4321. No, wait a minute. It's the, which one is it? No, 6900, disposal of district property.
Yeah,
Yeah,
6,900.
disposable, yes, that one, 6,900. It should be in the file attachment below, I believe. It's at the top. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and if we could go down towards the end. Okay, just up a bit, it says that, it's the second paragraph under disposal of textbooks, second paragraph, the end of that sentence, or disposes trash. My understanding is that books can be recycled, and rather than putting something as trash, I'd rather see it recycled.
That's what we usually do.
We do that.
Recycle, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's maybe some things on occasion that we can't, but for the
That
most
they're
part,
soiled.
Yeah, we get them recycled.
Okay, I just didn't want to lose that opportunity because, you know, one more tree,
Yes.
or several trees. Okay, that's it, thank you.
I have a couple on the policy 4321.3, independent educational evaluations. It's really just a grammatical or capitalization with the director of special ed and student services.
I think that's, is that 4321.3?
Point 3, yeah.
Okay. That's one of the ones that we were recommending to archive,
Oh, okay.
because
Then
it was
doesn't matter.
redundant with
All
some of
right.
the other
Perfect.
policies.
And then was the 6660-R, independent auditor regulation? Just with the first paragraph, changing the independent auditor shall serve as the,
I have just 6660, but not the regulation.
when I clicked on it, that's what came up.
That's what comes up?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Huh.
That's not what comes up.
That isn't, well, that's interesting. Okay. This is October 19.
Let me see.
Is there a regulation that's supposed to go with it?
Yeah. But
It
it's
might
not
be.
listed on
It was on the
the first
one-
reading?
Because I got it off of board docs.
It was the regulation, but it's not on here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's, should it be
We'll
on
check
there?
and
We
see
should-
if it
We should
should be
flag
added
it
for next.
for the next policy
Policy
meeting
committee.
that's coming up.
We might have even reviewed it, and it
And
just,
just,
maybe
it
didn't
didn't
get
make it on there,
transferred to
but.
here.
Okay.
Can we hang on to your?
Yeah,
edits?
sure, take it.
What was your?
Just the
concern?
pleasure of the board, it just seemed an outdated terminology that we may want to revisit.
Can I hold on to this?
Yes, you can have my copy.
If it's a housekeeping error, we could approve the policy and, as a first read, ask the policy committee to go back and make the correction for the second read.
We could, but it wasn't on
It's
the
not
attachment,
listed.
so we would have
It's
to
not listed
remove
on-
it.
For first read, so we'll look into that. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Next, we will recognize visitors on a non-agenda item. Anyone? Yep.
Good evening. My name is Jim Ebersold. I'm from the Rotary Club of Del Mar, and thank you, board members and superintendent, for hearing this. Rotary Club of Del Mar has been a community organization here since the 1950s, and we've been supportive of the schools. We work on the character breakfasts. We do scholarships for the students. We're involved with the 5K race that they do at the middle school for Gift of Life. And probably one of our premium things is our exchange program. We provide an opportunity for community members to go abroad for a very low cost, and we provide opportunity for students to come to the district. And we're really passionate about this program, and we believe in it. But a policy that change that was made in 2016, which we found out about before our exchange student arrived last year, was made to change the policy so a student had to be hosted by a family with a high school student. And we provide students 3 different households, and that causes us a difficult problem. And I also think it doesn't necessarily solve the problem that was initially a concern to the administration and the board, where you had problems with other programs that had come in, dropped students kind of into bad situations, and then didn't have the means to rectify it. And we'd like to get on the agenda for perhaps the next meeting to talk about that in more detail, or I'd be glad to do it right now.
We could invite him to the next policy committee
Bring
meeting?
information.
Okay.
If you wanted to bring information,
Yeah,
We have a policy committee meeting June 24th.
That's
I'd be
at
happy to
6
talk
o'clock?
to that committee.
Or
what day is it?
6 PM,
June 24th.
and it'll be in the Educational Services Center.
Okay,
So-
and that's here?
Yes,
My office,
Okay,
just down the hall.
I'll find it.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Future meetings and events. There is an audit committee meeting Monday, June 10th at 5:30 in the Educational Services Center. The next board meeting is June 19th at 7 PM here in the cafeteria with a 6 o'clock anticipated board executive session. Again, the policy committee meeting will be held on June 24th at 6 PM at the Educational Services Center. Class of 2019 graduation will be held on Thursday, June 27th at the Times Union Center at 6:30 PM. And then the following board meeting will be on July 9th here in the cafeteria at 7 PM with a 6 PM anticipated board executive session. And there's no reason for the board to go back into executive session, so can I have a motion to close the meeting?
I just want to ask a
Yes.
quick question about graduation. Do we know, just for the parents, if they're closing off South Pearl Street again like they did last year?
I think that's their intent, too. I
Okay.
think whenever they have graduations down there, the police section that off.
Okay.
It worked out nicely
was
last year.
very nice.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. And we'll be getting information about
The time,
timing.
parking, all that.
Yes.
And do you know, from last year, like, it was our first year having graduation ceremony at the Times Union Center, and there were just a couple of issues. I think there were some concerns with, like, the use of the restrooms for people with disabilities, and I think the other one was just exiting the Times Union, and I just was wondering if we just ensured that for this coming year, like we looked at
I hadn't
that.
heard about the restrooms, but the exiting, I know that.
I think they
we
just
heard
didn't
about.
know where to go, if they were sitting in certain seats that were labeled, you know, for people who have mobility issues on how to get to where they were. I just don't
Right.
think it was known where
Signage.
to go.
Yep.
Okay, do we make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. PIC students come up and sign out, and if you have